Next week's movie premiere is another story of action, adventure and romance. Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, next Saturday at 7:15.
Wartime Britain.
Oh, they're looking for people who can speak fluent French.
Who are?
It's sabotage and subversion.
Why me?
2 women leave their families and loved ones behind for a secret mission in occupied France. Risking their lives, they must prove themselves utterly reliable.
Emotional, weak, intellectually inferior.
They're a liability.
Here we go then.
Wish Me Luck starts next Sunday at 8:15 on LWT.
Next tonight, we join ITN for today's international news.
Ancient Greece, where Homer sailed the Aegean and worshipped the gods. Now Sharon flies in from Luton and worships the sun. And if you're cooking in Greece this summer, a word about your plastic. Will it give you a certain kudos in Mykonos?
Λυπάμαι, δεν δεχόμαστε στην κάρτα.
Will it take you skiing in Skiathos?
Όχι, με συγχωρείτε, δεν δουλεύω με αυτή την κάρτα.
The fact is, Barclaycard is welcome at thousands more places under the sun than certain charge cards I could mention. And now, the throwaway ending.
For details, dial 100 and ask for free phone Barclaycard.
I wish you wouldn't go.
I'll be all right.
You still got that cold. You must take these. Extra strong fisherman's friend with menthol for your nose and eucalyptusol for your cold. Years ago, Fleetwood fishermen used to take them on long, cold Icelandic trips. Take care, darling.
Fisherman's Friend helps ease your nose and throat on land or sea.
The race to the White House has always been long and hard. And along the way, it sure helps to find the right running mate.
Howdy, Mr. Lincoln. Perky's the name. Henry D. Perky.
Beat it, Buster. I'm busy.
But, Mr. Lincoln, my new shredded wheat cereal has all the bran fiber of 100% whole wheat.
You don't say.
No added salt nor sugar neither.
So?
So 2's fine if you're running for a bus. But since you're running for president...
3 shredded wheat?
Mm-hmm.
Gee, thanks, Perky. The hat's mighty fine, too. Shredded wheat, the original bran fiber cereal.
One cruise line will fly you free to the Caribbean from your local airport. There you cruise around to exotic islands and will fly you home again free. Pick up the Royal Caribbean Cruise brochure from your travel agent and fly free to paradise.
New Après Dual Cleansing Pads, enriched with apricot cleanser, have a textured side for thorough cleansing and a soft side for more delicate areas, leaving you with a fresh, clean complexion every day. New Après Dual Cleansing Pads.
It's new, it's free, it's the greatest! The Sunday Mirror Soccer 88 sticker album. No tokens, no waiting. It's free at your newsagents now. All the action, plus how to get free stickers.
Come on, Clyde, it's time for kick-off.
When you start sticking, you can't stop.
It's soccer's greatest ever, free offer.
From the Sunday Mirror.
Get it tomorrow.
Would you like to win £1 million? Well, so would I. While we're waiting, there's a new series of Aspel Company to look forward to. I'll be meeting the devilish witty Peter Cook, the beauty who charmed the charmer, Fiona Fullerton, and the charming, amusing, and almost beautiful Peter Ustinov.
Aspel Company, tonight at 9:55.
Later tonight, gripping football action from 3 of today's third-round FA Cup ties featuring Sutton versus Middlesbrough. Join Brian Moore for the big match tonight at 10:40. Now today's international news from ITN. Your newscaster, Trever McDonald.
news from ITN.
The Gaza riots worsen, another Palestinian is shot dead. 34 are arrested during a gay protest march in London. The Minnows failed to conquer in the FA Cup third round. And how a royal wedding in Scotland makes history. Good evening. Israeli troops have shot and killed another Palestinian demonstrator in the occupied territories. At least 4 others were wounded by Israeli gunfire. 29 protesters have now been killed since the disturbances began a month ago. The shootings happened in the Gaza Strip as residents staged a strike in support of jailed Palestinians. The Israelis sealed off the major refugee camps with armored personnel carriers. The protester who died was shot in the town of Khan Yunis during fierce clashes with troops. Jeffrey Archer at ITN reports.
The militant Islamic Jihad ordered residents of Gaza to strike today in protest at the detention of more than 1,100 Palestinians on riot charges. Shops and businesses were closed, and most of the 650,000 residents of the Gaza Strip stayed at home. Rioters took to the streets, barricading roads and fueling fires with petrol. Tear gas fired by Israeli soldiers was not always effective at dispersing stone throwers. Demonstrators seemed to have developed a resistance to the fumes. The army said they opened fire with live bullets only after non-lethal methods had failed to break up the demonstrations. 1 protester was shot dead and at least 4 were wounded. The Israeli army sealed off the Gaza Strip, telling TV camera crews it was a closed military area. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, the United Nations Under-Secretary General Marek Goulding, whom the Israeli Premier has refused to meet, began his fact-finding mission. The British Foreign Office Minister David Mellor, who criticised Israel's security methods this week, says he's received hundreds of letters from the British public, mostly in favour of his tough stance. In the occupied West Bank today, rioters also battled with troops and arrests were made. The Palestinians feel the tide of international opinion has turned their way again after a week in which Israel has been extensively criticised by the outside world. If that belief encourages the Palestinians to further violent unrest, the Israeli authorities are certain to counter the trouble with even greater firmness.
34 people were arrested in central London as some 10,000 gay men and women and their supporters marched through London. They were protesting against new government legislation to stop local councils promoting homosexuality.
The rally started peacefully. Around 10,000 gay men and women and their supporters in a proposed local government bill that will ban local councils from promoting homosexuality or funding homosexual groups. Michael Cashman, who plays Colin in television's EastEnders, was among the leaders of the protest. So too was actor Ian McKellen, who described his fellow marchers.
Some of them are rather noisy, some of them are a bit disruptive, but most of them are very well intentioned, all of them, and rather quiet about it and rather dignified, and I'm very pleased to be part of them.
As the marchers arrived at Downing Street, the police deployed to stop them entering. Police reinforcements arrived in vans as scuffles broke out when the demonstrators tried to get through the barricaded entrance and the police forced them back. The arrests began after hundreds of demonstrators resisted police efforts to move them on. Some had tried to stage a sit-down protest in the street. Tonight, there are accusations of police brutality denied by the police.
In a demonstration that size, and there must have been between 7,000 or 8,000 people, there was usually a few hotheads who all they want to do is to antagonise or obstruct police. And we had to respond to that to keep the streets of London peaceful.
The local government bill gets its second reading in the House of Lords on Monday and is due to become law in March.
A massive IRA car bomb went off in the Belfast city centre this evening. No one was hurt in the blast, which was heard 12 miles away. The IRA gave a 15-minute warning and police were able to evacuate the area.
2 phone calls had warned that a massive car bomb had been planted in one of the busiest areas of Belfast city centre. Streets around the law courts were sealed off and hundreds of people evacuated before the bomb exploded. The Chichester Street Magistrates Court took the main impact. There was extensive damage to the front of the fortified building, windows and part of the roof blown in. The wheels of the car in which the bomb had been planted were the largest recognisable part of the vehicle, although small fragments had been thrown hundreds of yards away. Dozens of shops and offices were hit, but all had been evacuated. There were no injuries. Bomb disposal experts sent in their robots to check for further devices. Even waste paper baskets were searched before the area was declared safe. The IRA say the bomb contained 500 pounds of explosive. Police estimate at about half that size, but capable of inflicting massive loss of life if the area hadn't been cleared. Meanwhile, police have just released details of yesterday's loyalist arms find in Portadown. It included 61 Kalashnikov rifles made in Czechoslovakia, 30 pistols and 150 anti-personnel grenades. 3 men believed to be connected with the Ulster Defence Association are still being questioned. Paul Davis, ITN, Belfast.
Reports tonight say that Lord Whitelaw will give up as Deputy Prime Minister and leader in the Lords within the next few days because of his health. Lord Whitelaw, who is 69, has been recuperating after his mini-stroke last month. His family is said to have told the Prime Minister they're worried about his workload. Reports in several newspapers tomorrow that he's being dropped were described by Downing Street as speculation. But our political correspondent says the indications are that Mrs. Thatcher will decide on Lord Whitelaw's future shortly. Labour's deputy leader, Mr. Roy Hattersley, has accused the government of being hell-bent on manipulating and gagging the media. He was speaking in Birmingham in support of a backbench bill on the Official Secrets Act, to be introduced next week by the Tory MP, Mr. Richard Shepherd. The bill would narrow the scope of Section 2 of the Act, which can be used to block any official information the government regards as a security risk.
The Shepherd Bill is supposed to prevent governments from manipulating the news and bullying newspapers. We haven't had a government this century which was more prepared to manipulate what goes into newspapers on television and more willing to use the courts to prevent newspapers publishing things that the government finds inconvenient and politically embarrassing.
What would you say the government's attitude is then?
The government's attitude is an attitude which is more appropriate in Eastern Europe than in a Western democracy. When a newspaper wishes to publish generally innocent matter, which is not in the government's interests, that newspaper is taken to court. Nothing to do with national security. Nothing the Russians ought to know or want to know or need to know. Simply matters which the government wants to keep away.
A tractor crashed into a ski lift at the French alpine resort of Val d'Isère. The tractor hit a pylon, sending 2 cabins crashing to the ground. The dead man was the tractor driver, who was preparing the run for a skiing race. White House sources say Vice President George Bush is to make a sworn statement on Monday to prosecution lawyers probing the Iran-Gate scandal. But it's being stressed he isn't a criminal target of the investigation. Mr. Bush, who is hoping to succeed President Reagan, has been dogged by accusations that he evaded questions about his role in the arms for hostages deal. The accusation surfaced again last night in a 2-hour debate with the 6 Republican presidential candidates.
This debate in Iowa was a crucial one. Voter caucuses here next month will be the first to pick delegates to the party conventions later in the year, a vital test of public support. George Bush, Republican frontrunner nationally, trails Senator Robert Dole in Iowa opinion polls, and allegations about the Iran-Contra scandal have surfaced at an awkward time for him.
The president explained it. He lived through it. He did what he thought was right to free these hostages. And I don't feel anything other than the willingness to answer a direct question except on that. So let me turn it around. What did you tell Mr. Nixon during the days of Watergate, or did it take you 15 years before you felt like coming forward as the chief of staff?
I wasn't.
You were there? You were the chief of staff?
President, George, and I wasn't asking the Republican Party to support me as their candidate.
Mr. Bush knows the Iran-Contra scandal won't go away. Perhaps the greatest damage it will inflict is the impression that he's on the defensive, when decisive leadership is what all the candidates are striving to offer. Tim Ewart, ITN, Iowa.
And now, with news of today's FA Cup third-round ties and the rest of the sport, here's Giles Smith.
It was the stage when the big teams come into the Cup, round 3, and there were few upsets. Non-league Sutton got a 1-1 draw against 2nd Division Middlesbrough, but 3 other part-timers, Bath, Maidstone and Yeovil, all went out. The holders Coventry and the runners-up Spurs both went through, but the performance of the day was 2nd Division Stoke's holding of mighty Liverpool to a goalless draw. Sutton's 6,000 supporters crammed into their tiny ground must have thought they were out when Middlesbrough's Gary Pallister scored with 12 minutes to go. But the 2nd Division promotion candidates had to settle for a draw thanks to a Mark Golly goal 8 minutes from time. You can see that later tonight in the big match on ITV. No happy ending, though, for the famous giant killers of Yeovil on their sloping pitch. This one of 2 goals by Rangers' Mark Falco that sunk the Somerset non-leaguers. It took the holders an hour to break down Torquay's defence, Kilcline converting a penalty. But a minute later, they made it safe when David Bennett's shot took a ricochet and Cyril Regis followed up. Stoke decided to attack everybody's favourites for everything, and at times it was only some outstanding goalkeeping from Mike Hooper standing in for an injured Grobbelaar that saved Liverpool. Towards the end, Stoke might have stolen it, and although Liverpool must be favourites for the replay at Anfield, it had been a great performance by Stoke to become only the 3rd team not to concede a goal against them this season. There was an upset in Rugby League's first major final of the new year when St Helens beat the favourites Leeds by a point to take the John Player Trophy at Wigan. It was the first time St Helens have won the trophy.
It had promised to be a final to remember, and from the very start it thrilled. Leeds fullback Marty Gurr getting an early slice of the action. Leeds took the lead 14 minutes in. The mix of Roy Powell and then David Creaser looked menacing. With the conversion it was 6-0, but St Helens fought back fast. Paul Laughlin made his first showing of a productive afternoon with a goal. And 10 minutes later he was back for more, sliding in a try and kicking the conversion that gave the Saints an 8-6 lead. The second half, Laughlin back in the action from the outset. A run of marathon proportions, he swept past Leeds to make the scores level. The conversion was good, St Helens ahead by 1. Tempers began to flare, and 10 minutes from time, Leeds' Gary Schofield hit the woodwork. Soon it was over. Some fans weren't happy, but St Helens held their trophy aloft. A new experience they clearly enjoyed. Simon Marks, ITN Sport, Wigan.
In Cardiff, the Welsh Rugby Union selectors were left with a few problems when the probables for Wales's first match against England in a fortnight were beaten 14-6 by the possibles. Racing in the big race at Sandown, favourite Ryman Reason was trailing second from last with half a circuit to go, but by the last he'd suddenly found another gear to steam past the rest of the field.
But the rest are fighting back, and on the near side, Queensway Boy comes through for second place. The Langham Dyer might make a place too, but Ryman Reason has it by 3 to 4 lengths, having looked beaten down the far side. Ryman Reason wins. Clear.
Ryman Reason 11-8 favourite, Queensway Boy 66-1, the Langham Dyer 11-2. Snooker and John Parrott threatened an upset in the final of the Mercantile Credit Classic at Blackpool, taking 3 of the first 4 frames against world champion Steve Davis. Along the way, the champ was making some un-Davis-like misses, and the latest score we have is 4-all. And with the Olympics just 9 months away, Daley Thompson looks to have recovered from injury. In the final of the 60 metres at Cosford, he only came 4th, but clocked 6.84 seconds, a new personal record.
And some late news, the Church of England has tonight confirmed it paid £12,000 to 2 men who said they could set up meetings with the kidnappers of Terry Waite. The church says the money was for travelling expenses for the men. They say it produced no useful result. Scotland Yard and the Foreign Office were told. The church says there was no question of paying any ransom. And finally, the cousin of the Queen gave up his right to succeed to the throne today to marry his Catholic fiancée. Lord St Andrews, 17th in line to the throne, also made history by becoming the first royal to marry in a British Register office.
At the local town hall, a crowd of around 1,000 turned out to see the most unusual of royal weddings. The groom, the 25-year-old Earl of St Andrews, arrived along with his sister, Lady Helen Windsor, and parents, the Duke and Duchess of Kent. Then came his bride, 30-year-old Canadian Sylvana Tomaselli, a non-practicing Roman Catholic who was divorced several years ago. She's a research fellow at Cambridge. Inside, the ceremony was private, but after handing over a marriage fee of £24, the couple posed for pictures. The civil ceremony must have brought back memories to the Earl's uncle, Prince Michael of Kent, who married the then Marie Christina von Reibnitz 10 years ago at a town hall in Vienna. The Earl, who's had to relinquish his claim to the throne, he was 17th in line, plans to take his wife on honeymoon abroad. David Glencorse, ITN, Edinburgh.
And that's all the news tonight from all of us at ITN. Good night.
the government going to change the Official Secrets Act to give itself even more power? Watch Weekend World live tomorrow at noon on ITV.
Hello, looking at the weather prospects for the next 24 hours around the region, there's still some rain at the moment. It's mainly in the southeast. Elsewhere, particularly in the west, the cloud is thinner, and that's where temperatures will be lowest, falling to 3 Celsius, 37 Fahrenheit. In central areas, we can expect 8 Celsius, 46 Fahrenheit, and in eastern parts, 5 Celsius, 41 Fahrenheit. Winds are southwesterly, 15 to 25 miles an hour. Tomorrow, everywhere will start cloudy, but it will brighten up for western areas with some good sunny spells. Central parts should stay dry, but there'll be rain in the extreme southeast. In fact, in Kent and Essex, there's the risk of rain at any time. The skies won't clear there until later in the day. It'll be a colder day tomorrow with temperatures of 8 and 9 Celsius, the high 40s Fahrenheit, and the winds southwesterlies blowing at 10 to 15 miles an hour. We'll be back just after 1 tomorrow. Until then, good night.
Whatever the weather, next tonight, a new series of Aspel Company.
This month, when you make a deposit worth £5 at Sketchley, we'll credit you with £1 every time.
Oh, yeah, these. And they taste delicious. Not hungry?
Mr. Kipling does make exceedingly tempting pies.
Lieutenant's the name. I had a lead on Candy's case. We were flying down to Rio, Brazil, and they were all nuts. Except for Mr. Green. He was the local boss. I opened a can of Tennant's Pilsner. The cool taste was at Panema Beach. Mr. Green made me an offer. I had a choice. My Tennant's Pilsner or a trainload of Reddies. It was close, but not that close. Tennant's Pilsner, it's good, but not that good.
Harem. A story of passion and power in a fantastic world where innocence is unknown.
Oh, I understand. You're frightened of what happens between a man and a woman.
Harem, a story of revenge.
Now is the time to emerge from the shadows.
With Art Malik and Omar Sharif.
You really have no choice.
Starting Sunday at 8:15, concluding Monday at 9. Harem.